roll down windows and try to take a short nap. Instantly we're hit with this nasty, cloying, sickly sweet odor. I just brush it off going just some wet deer, haha, should mean our scent won't travel far in heavy damp air. JD just looks at me and says that smells like death, bro, like a cow that's been out in the sun too long. I launch into a diatribe about him being a gigantic pussy and how he should deal with it. In any case, since we don't want either to be mucking about in woods home to mountain lions in the dead of night or be accused of night hunting by some faggot ranger, we decide to go check and see if the potting gas station is open. Surprise! JD's shitty old 4-banger won't start. Fine, looks like it's a nap followed by hunting, while we wait for some toothless mechanic to come jumpstart his car. All the while, this smell just seems to be seeping in through the vents and the cracks in the windows. It gets to the point where I'm actively retching in the car. Enough's enough, and we decide that if something had gone and died we'd prefer not to be stuck in a gigantic tin can right beside the corpse. We get out of the car, parked in the middle of this gravel parking area surrounded by tall grass on the north side and woods on all the others. A swamp was to our direct west, full of boar, deer, and critters. As I'm sitting there loading up the magazine to my rifle, JD just keeps scanning the tree line with his eyes. To the Europoors and Northerners, hunting in swamps is close quarters. We hunt boar with semi-automatic rifles in the south. You want a quick follow-up shot in case the 400-pound ball of muscle with 8-inch tusks decides to charge you from 25 to 30 yards out. Something's got his hackles all up, but I'm feeling fine, so I just dismiss it as faggotry. Anyway, suited up, we make our way down to the small footpath, 1 to 2 feet wide, that winds its way down into the swamp. However, reaching the tree line, we just both stopped, staring into the woods for a few minutes before either of us spoke. It was almost like shining a flood of dissipated the light. I could feel my skin crawl, and something deep in the hindmost parts of my mind told me just to walk right back to the center of the clearing and wait for light. Nope. So, we do what any caveman would have done in that situation. We grunted out a few excuses to preserve our manhood and went and sat the fuck down by his car. Like fuck I'm going to bumble through woods with mountain lion, weed growers, and God knows what else at 3:15 by that point in the goddamn morning. The mood lightened and the smell had seemed to recede a bit, so we just busied ourselves checking our rifles and talking about girls, politics, and history. We're a weird bunch. After a while the smell started coming back, and we began to voice our concern that something that smelled fucking dead was moving around. As the smell starts growing more and more oppressive I start hearing branches and twigs break in the undergrowth. Whatever it is, it's moving. I don't like that one bit. At this point, I'm thinking it's a mountain lion that's all covered in gore from a recent kill that's about to go full territorial mode. That wouldn't have been out of the question. But it wasn't. As I strained to hear where it was, I noticed that the snapping didn't come from the pat-pat of a four-legged animal. It resembled the crunch of a novice hunter picking his way through the undergrowth. My first thought was we either had a ranger with a sick sense of humor, a drug grower with a great sense of humor, or worse, a motherfucking serial killer. Either way, weapons were shouldered, bolts closed on loaded chambers, and lights pointed towards where the sound was. Nothing, it's fucking nothing. Just the smell and a, slower now, crunch, and it stops. The smell is everywhere now, and whoever it is sitting far enough back in the tree line not to be silhouetted by our lights. Smart asshole. No eye shine either, which ruled out just about any animal other than boar, which make enough noise to be easily noticeable.
Semi-auto for hunting. You fucking cunt. Real hunters use bolt actions only.
Once again, the caveman brain rears up deep within my psyche and tells me fire. A fire, you idiot, build a fire. So, what do? JD and I build a fucking fire. Throughout this whole affair, other than a few moments we'd been mostly quiet. However, the fire gives us comfort. And whatever it is seems to back off into the forest, if only for a while. As the fire burns hot, we start joking again, having a decent time. Convincing ourselves it was only a cougar. However, there's only so much timber in a gravel clearing, and after a while we'd have to venture out of the firelight to keep the fire going. That time came, and as the fire burned down to embers, the smell came back more oppressive than before. And with that smell, come an almost oppressive feeling of fear. Not regular fear, but an intense guttural fear that made your muscles tense, your stomach turn, and your eyes go white. Every fiber of our being told us to get more wood, to keep the fire high. Only with fire would we survive the night. So we cautiously walked to the closest tree line, barely able to see from the dying light of the fire. We'd been trying to save our flashlights. I was on guard duty, as we figured that my .308 semi-automatic would be a better standoff weapon than JD's small carbine. I'm tacticaling the fuck out at this point, adrenaline flowing from a profound feeling that something just isn't right. JD leans down into the undergrowth to pick up a stick, reaching into the tree line. He screams and falls backwards while branches break right in front of him. He gets up, freaking out, dusting himself off, saying he saw something staring at him first. Sunken eyes, a thick brow ridge, ashy gray skin. Then, it smiled at him. Not so much as smiled, but curled back its lips in a Cheshire grin. We are at Nook Con now, gentlemen. OP here, a quick break from my story. I've hunted Alaska for bear. Everywhere for deer and upland game. My usual rifle is a Mosin Nagant, trashy I know, and when I hunt bird it's a break-open shotgun. However, if you're hunting 400 pounds boar that can zip through knee-high water, as if it weren't there, it's one of the few times you'd want a semi-auto. Trust me.
Ever hunted elk or moose?
I wish, but sadly no.
I'm from the Ozarks too. Northwest Arkansas here. Missouri will pay you to kill feral hogs, but Arkansas won't.
My family's from Northwest Arkansas, but I'm currently living over in Northeast Oklahoma, so I can commute to work. I'm going to ignore the next hour of this hopscotch game of the fire dying, the smell growing more intense, him, as we call it now, drawing nearer, building the fire back up, and him retreating back to stay away from the firelight. However, it should be noted that this entire time he was circling us, probing our defenses, seeing if it could find a way to get up close without being seen. By the time 5 a.m. rolled around, we'd exhausted almost all of the dry firewood that wasn't within the tree line, except for the tall grass on the northeast side of the road, and we of course do what we have to do and slowly pick our way over to the tall grass. By this point I have taped a flashlight to my rifle and switch it on as we leave the fire to get some dry grass. As JD is filling his hands with tinder, I check my right-hand side and look down the road. I wish I hadn't. Just as I swing my flashlight over the road, I see him for the first time. It's grayish-black, with either sloughing skin or matted gray fur, I honestly couldn't tell. It crossed the 10-yard wide track what seemed like instantly. Hunched over, maybe 5.5 to 6 feet tall, moving like a gorilla does. It's over. Something in my head just starts screaming it's over. It knows you've seen it. It's not just being territorial. It's circling like a predator. It is a predator. That feeling hadn't been one of fear, but of impending predation. Somehow, the lower parts of our subconscious had known what was going on long before we did. In any case, we ran back to the fire, popped the dry grass on top, and waited for the smell to recede. It didn't. It was close, very close, and this time it wasn't moving. So we pushed out and got in the trunk of JD's car and listened as it passed behind. In a burst of brilliance, I decide that we either make the 3-mile run through dark countryside to the gas station and pray the lights are on, or we build a fire big enough that one of the farmers or someone driving the main road can see it. We end up deciding that sprinting 3 miles through dark countryside, guns on our backs, could at the worst get us devoured by him or shot by a terrified farmer. So, we do the next best thing. I pull a fucking small tree out of the ground. I'm not talking about a bush, I'm talking a small 8 to 9 foot tree. It's amazing what adrenaline can do for you. So much adrenaline where your facial muscles are drawn tight and your eyes dilate to being nearly black, JD's description of my face. In any case, the fire burns bright, very bright, after a while, and he retreats further into the woods. This fucking tree burned a long ass time. Eventually, maybe 30 minutes, after throwing the tree on the fire, 3 lifted trucks come barreling down the road and fly into the gravel parking area. The first truck had an obscene amount of those off-road lights on the bull bar and roof, which lit up the whole glade like the fucking sun. The smell almost goes away entirely, still there, but almost imperceptible. No one gets out of the first truck. A man wearing a National Guard t-shirt and Aku pants hops out of the second truck with his hand on his hip, concealed pistol. He questions us for about 10 minutes, makes us disarm, clear our chambers, and set our rifles in JD's car. He tells us there's a burn ban, we shouldn't be out here fucking around, etc. etc. We explain our car died when we came out hunting and made that as a signal fire. He just looks at us strangely at the word hunting. Walks back to truck number 1. Comes back, tells us not to come back there unless we have all of our ducks in a row. Truck number 3 drives over and a man hops out to jumpstart our car. I shake his hand and thank him profusely, and he gives me a worried but sympathetic look. He doesn't say much, but walks back to his truck and drives away. Truck 2 drives away shortly thereafter. We've got all of our shit packed up. Truck 1's window rolls down and a rather fat man in a polo calls me and JD over. There's no boar here, boys. If you're hunting for boar, you best be looking further on down the road. At least on the other end of county redacted. Bullshit, tons of boar in there. But I don't say that. I'm not going to mouth off to the hillbilly militia that just saved my life. So I thank him for his advice. JD and I get back in his car, debating whether he had gone away with all the commotion. Just as soon as Fatty McLightbar had pulled out, the smell returned yet again. Nope. We're out. Hop on the gravel road, drive to the highway, drive past a few farms, and make our way towards the western border of county redacted. We notice we're being followed by a small white Honda. Guess who's sitting in the front seats? Fatty McLightbar and hillbilly militiamen. They follow us all the way out of that county, then turn around. So ends my experience. It's hard to get green text to express emotion, the exact description of the smell, or the fucking primal fear we felt. I wrote an after-action report of sorts the morning after that hunt, but haven't been able to find it after I moved, hence the green text. In any case, I've debated going back with more than 2 people to hunt him, but I'd like to know what exactly I was dealing with. This is, of course, not touching the fact that the hillbilly militia patrol seemed to know more than they were letting on. Ideas, X-Files?
People that have been around animals know they stink. Dogs, coyotes, bears, etc. have a smell. And animals like rolling in smelly substances. Even horses and chickens. Now, with the gray coat, the lack of eye shine, and the fact it was on its knuckles like a gorilla, I'm assuming that's what OP meant. Anyone think this is an old skunk ape? Cataracts would kill eye shine. And if he was old, possibly he can't take care of himself, has infections, and therefore would smell horrible. Yes, most skunk apes are said to stink, but not to the point of making someone vomit. I lived on a farm for almost 3 decades, and infections, especially in long-haired animals, are rank as hell. My double-coated dog had one recently. He smelled like rotting flesh. Had to shave him bald to find the abscess. Opened it up the rest of the way and cleaned it out. If I wasn't used to disgusting shit like that, I'm sure I'd be vomiting too.